Call meeting to order. It's 5:30 p.m. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Ross?
Here.
Councilman Burgess?
Here.
Councilman Shelley?
Here.
Mayor Porter?
Here. Any additions, deletions, deferrals? We'll go straight into tab 1.
Okay, if you could read that first statement, Mr. Mayor,
You read
or
it.
I'd be glad to read it. The City of Homestead's proposed operating millage is 5.9215 mils, which is the same as the previous year's millage rate, and the proposed voted debt millage rate is 0.5934 mils. The rolled back millage rate is 5.5276 mils. The proposed operating millage rate of 5.9215 mils is 7.13% above the rolled back rate of 5.5276 mils. At this time, we should have a discussion of the proposed millage rate and the proposed budget.
Any questions from council? Is this, do we open up this to the public as well?
You can,
We have a presentation.
Okay, so we'll go, any questions before we go to the presentation? Okay, Mr. Manager.
Carlos is going to start us off, and I'll wrap it up.
Carlos. All right, Carlos. And again, if we could, just so that Carlos can work through the entire budget, let's hold our questions till the end, okay?
Thank you. And I will, basically what I'll be going is the budget highlights of the proposed 2017 budget. Basically, our budget philosophy for this process was no millage rate increases, no reduction in city services, no increase in city fees, and no layoffs. And this has been a philosophy that's worked for the last several years in preparing the budget. We hope that we can continue this for future years. I mean, as it is, we have not had a millage rate increase for the last 6 or 7 years. By Florida law, the maximum allowable rate, millage rate, is 10 mils. Our current millage rate is 5.9215, and our proposed millage rate is 5.9215, so the millage rate remains the same. The rollback rate is 5.5276. Property values, if you all recall, in 2008, at the peak of the real estate, our values were at $4 billion. Between 2009 and 2012, we had decreases that decreased our values by almost 55%. Then in 2013 through 2016, we had some increases of about 18, 19%. This past year, we had an increase of 8.33% in our property values. But overall, over the last 8 years, we've lost $1.65 billion, almost 42%. How does that translate into ad valorem taxes? Ad valorem taxes are basically a combination of the property values and the millage rates set by this council. In 2009, we were at $16.7 million. Between 2010 and 2013, again, we decreased by 44%, about $7.45 million. Then between 2014 and 2016, we had some increases of about $1.6 million, or about 18%. And then this past year, our ad valorem tax revenues have increased by 8.2%. But again, over the last 8 years, $4.9 million in lost tax revenues, almost 29%. Doing more with less. I struggled with this slide when I put it up because, as you can see, obviously...
Back up one, I think.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Struggled with this slide because, as you can see, the 2017 proposed budget is actually more than the 2007. However, during that same period of time, the consumer price index increased by 16.8%. Yet our budget is only 2% greater than that one in 2007. And again, our population has grown again. So we are doing more with less. So basically a snapshot of our general fund revenues, and the one to look at here is basically our ad valorem taxes make up about 25% of the revenues for the general fund, and that represents about $11.7 million. And keep that in mind as we look at the expenses. If you look at the expenses, basically public safety represents more than half of the general fund's budget. Their budget is $25 million. And yet the revenues that we get for property taxes are only 11.7. It doesn't even cover half of the public safety budget. This is a snapshot of the general fund budget by department. Comparing 2016-2017, we only had an increase of 5%. Basically, the major changes in the general fund. If you can see that large one, contingency, basically it's kind of the year of the unknowns. But let me start by saying that some of the police operations are funded by confiscated funds, and in the last couple of years we have received no monies for confiscated funds. And again, those are basically generated through seizures, drug operations, things like that. You cannot budget in anticipation of those monies. You can only budget what you have. We've basically tapped them out, and we don't know that we're going to be receiving any more. So a lot of the things that were budgeted in the confiscated funds, some of those had to be moved over to the general fund. In particular, some police car leases that by law were required to budget for it. So because again, this is kind of an unknown. We don't know if during the year we may get some money from confiscated funds, and if that's the case, we will come before this council and basically ask for a budget amendment so we can appropriate it in the correct place. But for now, we've got it as contingencies. And other funds that we have in there is, again, we've had some facilities that we brought on board, so there's some unknown costs for some of those facilities. That's included in there. As far as healthcare and pensions, it's $511,700. You've got permitting and inspections increased by $230,000, but again, that's going to generate revenues from the activity that's going to be generated from inspections. It's going to generate a lot more revenues than the costs here. Then we've got a one-time funding of $154,000 for the new police building furniture and fixtures and moving expenses. We've also increased the annual street improvements in the general fund by $130,000, primarily because we received an increase, or we anticipate an increase in the local option gas tax for about the same amount of money. And then rounding up the changes, we have new special events and sponsorships of $82,400, which you will see the details in this slide. Basically, these are items that are currently funded in this proposed budget. A request for special events for New Year's celebration in downtown for $50,000. Special events for Youth Empowerment Showcase. Now, this is in lieu of the chili cook-off that had been unfunded in the prior year. There was a request to bring that back, but as in the form of a Youth Empowerment Showcase. There's a request for $10,000 for sponsorship for Career Source of South Florida, and this is to provide employment to the youth. And then the last item on there, if you all recall, the council in October of 2015 requested that instead of having the sponsors for the rodeo, the Martin Luther King and the Veterans parades coming before this council asking for waivers, you requested that we provide for some sponsorship, and that's what this is doing in there. So basically that generates the $82,385. Now, on this next slide, these are items that are currently not in the proposed budget. These were requests that were made after we had basically balanced it out. There's a request for $25,000 for a Greenway Economic Impact Study to find out what kind of an impact this would have on the local economy if the Greenway bike path is done. And then there's also a request for $5,000 for a Thanksgiving Day dinner and turkey giveaway. And if we, at the end of the presentation, if there's no objection from the council, finance can go ahead and incorporate this in the budget without it being an increase to the bottom line. We can basically take it out of the contingencies. Here are the general fund CIP projects. If you recall, in July 27th at that meeting, we brought forward the capital improvement projects. These are basically a detail of what's funded in the general fund. The cost of those projects are $846,630, but the impact of the general fund in 2017 is only $135,493 because of financing. Then these next two slides basically represent the citywide CIPs, which are at $12.6 million compared to last year, which was about $12,789,000. This is a snapshot basically of the enterprise funds budget. It's $111 million, and basically what you see there is the electric utility represents about 65% of the enterprise funds. And this is all funds for the budget, and basically it's going from $187 million to $193 million. Again, general fund only represents about 25% of the city's overall budget. The bulk of it is all the enterprise funds, which represent about 58%. And here's a snapshot basically comparing all the different funds, the 2016 budget versus the 2017. And again, repeating, electric utility represents about 37% of that. General fund is about 25% of that. Overall, it's a 2.9% increase from the prior year. As far as total staffing of 476, there are no changes. This represents 401 full-time employees and 75 part-time employees. What we're asking council to do tonight is to adopt a proposed millage rate, the operating millage rate of 5.9215 mils, and a debt millage rate of 0.5934 mils, and also to adopt the fiscal year 2016-2017 city budget. The budget can basically be found on the city's website at www.cityofhomestead.com, and our second final budget hearing will be held on September 21st, 2016 at 5:01 p.m. And then the question that everybody wants to know is, where does your tax dollar go? And basically, you got 34 cents of every tax dollar that's paid to the city goes to the county. 33 cents goes to the school board. 4 cents goes to other regional organizations, and only 29 cents of that comes to the city. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to the city manager, who has a few words to say.
Mayor, council, geez, Carlos, I think this is my fifth proposed budget, maybe sixth. I'm starting to lose track of time, but the last 6 or 7 years between, I guess, it's been about 5, 6 years without a proposal to increase the millage rate. And that's all well and good because nobody wants to see their taxes raised. And so we aim to please here. On the other hand, this city has seen something that's very unique that most cities don't experience ever, and that is your property values back in 2008, when you added up every single property in the city, the value was $4 billion. And because of the economic turn, and everybody got some sort of a hit from the economic turn, but Homestead got hit extraordinarily badly. And so by 2012, values went down to $1.8 billion. So more than half of the total value of your properties here in Homestead dropped. And so, as you all know, because most of us, started together here when this occurred, was, all right, how do we address this kind of catastrophic drop in values, while at the same time not gutting service, not putting employees out on the street, and making sure that the taxpayers get the value and the services that they are accustomed to. And so the idea was, well, we can tax our way out of that problem and start raising the mill rate to bring those revenues back, or we can do things over time in a longer-term strategy in order to grow our local economy and start generating new revenues. And so on the one hand, we kind of were hoping, and thankfully the national economy started picking up, but also, how do we take a city that's more than halved its property values and start getting those up? And what can local government actually do to bring those up? And so the strategy, as you all know, was to revitalize the downtown. And look at the downtown sort of like you'd look at the lobby in a hotel. And you think about the difference between a $69 a night hotel and a $500 a night hotel. Some of that has to do with the look and the feel of the lobby, because that's what people will judge you from the very minute you walk through the door if you're a hotel. Well, the same thing is true about cities and their downtowns. Downtowns become the symbol of the city. It's how many people will judge your quality of life here. And when you see a downtown that over the years fell victim to the same kind of problems that downtowns all over the country fell victim to, it starts diminishing the reputation of the city and the values of the city. So as people look around and they see this big, beautiful building and the police station almost done, and people wonder, geez, well, if we dropped all these values, how are we doing that and why? Well, part of that was to get people to believe in our downtown and get investment into the downtown. And so I can't tell you the impact, Mayor, many of the council members know, that as we brought people in to try to encourage investing in the downtown, people didn't start actually believing us until they started seeing buildings go up and see that the city still had some skin in the game. And the other thing that's different between, and this is where there's some confusion, is year to year as we budget, we look at recurring revenues, how much do we get in from the property taxes, the property values, and outside sources of revenue that we can count on an annual basis, and where can we get revenues that are not necessarily going to come every year, but are good investments for the city. So whether it's the city hall, where we had revenue in place from property sales and other value and other assets that we had, or going to the voters and asking them for a little extra revenue to pay for the buildings. That's much different than coming here every year and say, we have annual expenses in our budget that we have to pay for every year, and we need to adjust our millage rate accordingly. So really, it's very simple. If you look at the big piece, which is your property values went, now, thankfully, a couple of years we've had some growth, but you're still down almost 42% in value. So you either adjust for that by raising taxes, or you try to find ways to adjust for revenue. Now, part of that is also, there's one other piece to that, is you can start cutting services as well. Now, the problem with the cutting of the services is that, as you all know, when you looked at the slide that Carlos showed you, the budget in 2007 was $47 million. 10 years later, we're at $48 million. Meanwhile, cost of living has gone up about 17%. Population has gone up from the cities, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we were 39,000 people. Now we're at 56,000 people. So population grows, demands grow. And so the staff here has really struggled to try to just keep the services to what people have been accustomed to and not having to ratchet back services. And in the bad economic times when other cities were closing parks and closing down pools and really significantly reducing services, we've been able to hold it together, but it hasn't been easy. Now, as people see the economy getting better and as they see the buildings popping up, I can't tell you how much activity and interest I've seen from everyone asking, okay, now can I have my this or my that or my other thing? That is departments needing more staff. And do they need more staff? Absolutely, they need more staff. Every department here has need. Every department here is asked. And what we've tried to do is just get everybody to understand that if the revenues are not there, and we still have, in my opinion, a few more years to level off, because if we don't level off, at some point, we're going to have to come back to you for a tax increase. And I don't think that's something that can be avoided forever. But it's also, this is a cultural problem we have, I think, in South Florida, maybe in other places in the country, where you can't have no tax increase forever because costs go every year. Does your cable bill go up every so often? Does your cell phone bill go up? Does your grocery bill go up? How many of your other expenses never go up ever, ever, ever? And to expect governments to do that, do your homeowners association fees go up? Never, ever, ever? So 6, 7 years, long time for a tax increase. Hopefully we can get through a few more years. But unless we substantially grow the economy in this city, that's just something that is going to have to be looked at very carefully. On the other hand, it seems like we've all been committed to the idea of focusing very heavily on revitalizing the downtown. I think you've all seen in our trips where we've gone to conferences and trying to generate interest from the private sector that we have actually seen. We went from nobody wanting to come into our booth to double booked, because now people actually are starting to believe what we're doing here. And we have some heavy lifting to go, because getting those private sector dollars in here are not easy, and it involves people really believing that you're committed to finishing what you started, because we're right now half-baked. A couple of government buildings, they're important, but until you get that private sector to come in here and invest and create sustainable business, this becomes a half-baked, short-lived experiment. So I would just suggest to you that as people ask you, why can't we have more this and more that and more the other thing, I hope we continue to stay firm with the strategy that we all kind of worked on together many years ago, which is hold it together as best as we can, commit to the employees that nobody's going to be a victim and going to be discarded for political convenience. And I say that with gratitude, because plenty of your colleagues all over the country decided to just discard their employees because at that time it seemed like good politics. And so people lost their jobs and people had families to feed and ended up, some people who used to work for government ended up on welfare because there were no jobs out there. And so to be committed to your employees the way you have, you see the table of organization, those numbers didn't change. And I think every employee that's here understands that while they want more, they also don't want to create a situation where at some point we can't afford that more, and then we have to throw people overboard and onto the street, and nobody wants that either. So the philosophy remains the same: no millage increase, no reduction in services, no increase in city fees, and no layoffs. The downtown work will continue. We will focus substantial efforts and energy to finish what we started in the downtown. But also, I know you have two big binders on your desk today with all kinds of numbers in them. What we try to do every year is take those numbers and convert them into something else so that people can really understand what it is that we actually do here, and remind everybody of that, because for me, more and more I've seen when I try and turn to the private sector for services, whether it's my cable or my cell phone, I call and the service is not always fantastic. And sometimes my cell phone doesn't work, sometimes the cable doesn't do what I ask it to do, sometimes the internet is intermittent. But I know this. I know that every single time you go to your faucet and you turn that faucet on, the water comes out, it's wet and it's clean. And it comes out wet and clean every single time. And that's the standard that we're held to. We're not held to the standard of, oh, well, sometimes it's not going to work. It has to work every single time, and it has to be clean every single time. And so water and the garbage gets picked up, and the lights have to turn on. And when you call 911, because the likelihood is when you call 911, it's probably one of the worst times of your life. It's probably the most desperate moment that you're going to have. And knowing that somebody is going to come and make sure that you're not victimized, that you're not, tragedy doesn't ensue, or helps you when tragedy has struck. And they come every single time. And they come as fast as they can. And so that toilet, you flush it, it goes someplace, and there's a whole lot of people that work on that to make sure it goes someplace and it doesn't pollute the environment, and that it's handled the way it's supposed to handle, and that it happens every single time. And of course, there's a whole bunch of people that you don't see that are not out on the streets, but they're in their offices working hard so that the taxes don't go up and all the mechanics of all those services get done. And of course, the streets and the sidewalks, making sure that they're safe and they're clean. All of that happens at local government. And I know we're in a national election and everybody's talking about big issues, but the layer of government, the level of government that impacts people's lives the most is what we do here. We impact people's lives on a daily basis, regularly, over and over and over again, and the services that we provide, we don't have the option of providing it sometimes. It has to be provided every single time. So this budget book is really, it comes alive. And with this video, what we're going to show, and we'll dim the lights for this, what we'll find is this is about the people who serve others. And I thank everyone on the staff here, the department heads, and every member of the staff here. We're all grateful that you didn't throw anybody overboard. We're grateful that you invested in them as employees and you invested in the city. And we're all grateful to every member of the staff that works really hard, because we're here to serve, and the theme of our video this year is one call away. And with that, Zach, you're on.
I'm only one call away. I'll be there to save the day. Superman got nothing on me. I'm only one call away. Call me baby if you need a friend. I just wanna give you love. Come on, come on, come on. Reaching out to you, so take my hand. No matter where you go, oh, you're not alone. I'm only one call away. I'll be there to save the day. Superman got nothing on me. I'm only one call away. Come along with me and don't be scared. I just wanna set you free. Come on, come on, come on. You and me can make it anywhere. For now, we can stay for a while. 'Cause you know, I just wanna see you smile. No matter where you go, you know you're not alone. I'm only one call away. I'll be there to save the day. Superman got nothing on me. I'm only one call away. And when you leave, I'll be strong. I'm gonna keep holding on. Now don't you leave, won't be wrong. Like hope is gone, just run into my arms. I'm only one call away. I'll be there to save the day. Superman got nothing on me. I'm only one. I'm only one call away. I'll be there to save the day. Superman got nothing on me. I'm only one call away. I'm only one call away.
Thank you all. Mayor, Council, thank you to you all. Thank you to the staff, budget, Carlos and your team for getting this proposed budget. And now we're open for questions if you have.
Any questions from council? Mr. Burgess?
No, Mr. Manager, staff, I just want to say, I got my trim notice several weeks ago, and actually my bill is going to go down this year, no matter which millage rate is chosen by the county. And that just shows the hard work that we do, and I look back as I keep my taxes for ever since I moved into my house, and I think my taxes for the exact same services I got back in like 2006 are about 50% of what I paid back then. For what I get today from the city, which is exactly the same. So I want to say to everybody that's made it possible, from the manager to all the department heads to each and every employee, thank you, because that's a big difference. $1,800 is what my bill is over there where I'm at, and half of that I used to pay $3,600. So that's a big difference and a big saving for each and every family here in the city of Homestead. And it says a lot for our management team and our philosophy here, so I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? One question with regards to, Mr. Shelley, go ahead. Mr. Shelley.
You go ahead, then I'll go.
I asked Carlos earlier tonight, we've been doing the state of the city much differently than it was previously done. We're using this more as a marketing piece. All the council members are included, so that we can put that solid face out, because it's not just the state of the city. It's an update of the state of the city, but we're using it, in all of our out-of-town marketing. And I know this year we've got $20,000 in the budget. And did you have any plans for doing any more internal this year? Because we ran out of money last year trying to do it as well. So I'm just concerned about the process of not leaving enough money in that so that we can get an actual good representation of what's going on in the city.
I mean, if you wanted to adjust it, we can adjust that with contingency. So we just need a sense of what kind of budget you want for that, and we're
Well,
happy to adjust it.
Originally, it was 25,000, and then I think this year it's 20,000. Last year, we ran out of money, so just wanted to have the conversation because
I mean, I don't recall reducing it, Carlos, so.
Yeah, I've always recalled being 20,000, but like the manager said, as we can certainly, if there's consensus among the council, we can certainly adjust it to whatever amount you feel it should be
If you'd
fit.
prefer 25 or 30, I mean, we're happy to, I mean, the truth of the matter is that video that we use for other things, but it's totally up to you. That won't be a big deal either
Right, the
way.
point is, I mean, at the end, we're getting community support through donations for actual day of event, when we throw the unveiling of the state of the city. So, and I know last year we just had a little bit of a problem making everything, all the ends meet, because obviously if the film crew comes down and we can't all make it, I got sick last year. And so that, that rolls into our ability to produce a really good product at the end of the day. So I just don't want us to shortcome that event simply because it's done differently than it was before. Years past, it was a party for the mayor. We're not doing it like that. This is really our marketing piece for the council to show what we're doing as a team and moving the city forward. So I just don't want us to not have enough money in that. So I don't know if, I don't know if 5,000, I think 5,000 would probably be gracious plenty, or just have some ability to know that, I don't want us to keep losing.
I mean, we would prefer that you all determine the budget for that so that we at least know what a benchmark is. If the council is comfortable with the 25, I mean, we have no objection, so it's.
Okay. All right. Mr. Shelley and then Mr. Williams. Mr. Shelley?
Do you want to discuss that item first, or just?
I just, I'm coming to you. If you
Okay.
If you want to have a discussion on that, I can see if Mr. Williams has something to weigh in on that.
Yeah, if you want, if not, I got different items. I've got three completely different items.
Okay, Mr. Williams?
Yes, I would just say, Mayor, what was the cost last year?
Last year, you're saying it was 20.
It was
but-
budgeted at 20,000,
I know,
yes.
but what was it? What did we actually spend? See, I know y'all like to play word chess here. What did you all actually spend?
I don't have that available right now, but
Yeah,
I
no.
would have to get that.
We don't have the actuals, although when it comes to events that are budgeted.
No, what
I
I'm saying,
don't-
what I'm trying to say is to quickly just to get what the mayor is looking for, is I don't have a problem in increasing it to, to 25, you said, Mayor?
That's what I was always under the impression it was, Mr. Williams. I could be wrong.
So, I mean, if there's consensus, how will we need to do that as it relates to?
What we can do
on
is.
second reading?
What we'll
We'll
do
just
is,
put it back
if
in.
there's no objection, we'll adjust it. So in the second reading, the numbers won't change, other than that money will come from the contingency,
Right.
so there'll be less in
Less,
contingency.
right. How much do we have in contingency now? About $1 million something?
A little over $1 million, yes.
A little bit below $1 million, rounded up, million. So, yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I think that would be too.
So is there any objection to that? This way okay, so Carlos, I thank you. You got your answer.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Anything else, sir?
No.
Mr. Shelley?
Thank you, Mayor. I just had three items I wanted to, I guess, more comments than anything else. One was just kind of discuss the general philosophy. I know each year we've all, as the manager stated pretty clearly, we all kind of came up with the concept of rather than tax our way out of this, let's build our way out of this. Let's increase property values. Let's make the city more enticing to investors and to other developers, and kind of grow our way out of this. And I think that's been working. As you can see, our values have started going up. We started seeing projects come together on life on the street, but at the same time, there's a limited amount of resources we can pull from before we hit the end of that term. So either we're successful and we're able to grow our way out of this such that the revenues equal the expenses, or at some point we're going to have to decide, do we need to modify that philosophy a little bit to make sure that at the end we end up where we all want it to be. And so I just wanted to bring to the attention that I think that I support 100%. I'm still on board 100% with our philosophy and what we've been doing and the way that we've been working and trying to grow our way into success. But I think we're also hitting that tipping point where I think we're going to need to see some some additional growth and more substantial growth next budget cycle in order to feel more comfortable about the way we're moving forward. So I just wanted to kind of put that on the record because I think we are getting to that point where we only have a few years left where it's either going to have to succeed or we're going to have to slightly modify what we're doing and just kind of lay the table to say, you know, I'm fine with everything as it is this year and I think it's going successfully. But starting next year, if we don't have more substantial growth, you know, that we're going to have to maybe reassess a little bit how we're going to proceed. So that was the first item. Second one was I saw on the slide on the new events. I think the idea for a New Year's concept is great. I think it's a fantastic idea. I think it'd be good to have, you know, Homestead. We are kind of the center of South Dade, and so I think it's a good way of bringing more attention to us. The only question I have, and it's more for further discussion, not necessarily budgetarily, because I support moving it forward as much as it is timing-wise. I don't know whether this year is the first year to have that big event, and so I don't know if we're going to have further discussion of this item as we go down the pike as far as discussing how we're going to do it. But that was just something to lay on there because the downtown is still in a developmental phase, you know, whether or not this year is the best year to have the big event. And I can, you know, we can assess that as we go forward, but I just wanted to kind of state that.
I mean, our preference is if there's a commitment to do it this year, we'd prefer to know it tonight. There's a lot of planning that's involved with that. And so if you all want to commit to that tonight, then we're going to get to work right away after the budget is approved next at the next hearing. If you wanted to give that some thought, and if you wanted to make the change at the next budget hearing, that's an option as well.
Okay. And again, I support whatever the majority of council supports. Again, I support the concept. I support the idea. I think it's a great idea. I think it'd be good for the city and really bring a focus and attention to South Dade. So that I agree with. I just don't know whether our downtown's quite ready for that big of an event. All the pieces aren't quite in place yet. I think they will be next year for sure, but this year, that's my only concern. I just wanted to raise it more so than anything else. The third item is on the slide of additional requests. One of them was the Greenway project, Biscayne Everglades Greenway project. That's a project that I've tried to pick back up and move down the pipeline because it ties into the city of Homestead being the gateway to the city, gateway to Everglades and Biscayne National Parks. I had a meeting with Commissioner Cava and Miami-Dade County Parks and Rec, and we have a plan. We start to have an idea of how to move this forward, how to market it, how to sell it, and how to get funding for it. And one of the first steps is this economic study. We need to be able to prove the economic impact that a greenway would have to the city of Homestead, but also to the entire South Dade region. And so that was why that was added. So I don't know if we need an additional action.
Unless there's objection to either one of those items, we'll assume that there was fine. In fact, all of those items, unless we hear an objection from the majority, we're assuming all of those are fine.
Okay. And that's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
And just from a timing standpoint, the intentions are to do the state of the city earlier this year. Last year, we really kind of wanted to do it more quickly. So on the heels of the conversation, if we've got police grand opening from a staff perspective, you got the police building coming online. We've got a potential planning of a major New Year's Eve event downtown, and at the same time, all of us are going to be required to have some sort of input and staff input on our state of the city on next year, because really I don't want us to go, if I can, I want us to go March, April, May with the state of the city. I'd like us to do, kind of have it at the beginning of every year so that it's the state of what we just did, and we get it into a January, February, no later than March cycle, if we could. So that's a lot of input initially right there at that time of year when we're always overwhelmed anyway. Mr. Williams?
My only question.
Sorry, I can't.
My only question will be for that event, who will be planning? What would it look like?
It would be like...
You on now?
It would be like most of the other events. We'll come up with a plan internally, which would involve parks and my office and police department. And we've already got a general sketch of what we think it would look like. I've done 2 of them already in 2 cities, and so it's generally one way. The difference between this city and I think some of the other cities that do this is we suspect it'll be much more of a family-oriented event. So we're still grappling with what it's going to look like, but we'll have a sketch for you. Assuming you're comfortable doing this, we'll have a sketch for you pretty soon.
Well, my opinion is that I think that anything to bring downtown up or to bring awareness to downtown is always a plus. You know, it's an investment. I see it as than anything else.
One other thing, if I could add, is what I've seen with these events, with New Year's Eve, is that you create a legacy event that will likely be here forever. And it's the kind of thing that people ultimately rely on it. It's one thing to do on New Year's that gets the community together. And so that's, once you do it, you're probably not going to stop it.
I won't be a part of it because I have church service. I won't be there. So for me, personally, legacy doesn't matter because I won't be involved because I have a different philosophy as it relates to that. But going forward, you know, for the citizens and to promote downtown, it doesn't, I think it's an investment into, even though I agree with Councilman Stelly, it's not quite there yet, but we want to keep the people on the edge to say it's coming, you know, and I think more events like this will probably, you know, convince and continue to bring the awareness that Homestead is here. We have events for family-oriented events, and I think it would be something great. So I see it as an investment into downtown. Thank you, Mayor.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm going to excuse myself. I have to catch the plane so that I can be at the meetings with Showbiz tomorrow morning in Dallas.
Yes, sir.
George is on my schedule. Pardon?
We have a competent replacement for you right here.
We do.
Will there be music at the changing of the guard, Mayor, or how are we going to work this?
No, we're going to go to Mr. Burgess. Thanks, Richard. Mr. Burgess?
Thank you, Mayor. If you guys remember the grand opening of the theater, I yelled, "What a great idea," as I looked out over the crowd to have a New Year's Eve celebration to bring our people down there and gather them like we had them that night. And so this was one of my requests to staff this year. And we may not be there, but as Councilman Williams said, we've got to keep that energy going and show them that the city is there and show everybody around that may be down here with interest. The city can draw people downtown too, because businesses will see the crowds potential crowds that come down there for an event like that. And I think it shows them a stronger sense of their ability to draw people down there, you know, that people will show up down there if there's something going on that's alive and warrants their the entertainment and stuff that the people of Homestead are looking for down there. So I agree with that. My one question to Mr. Shelley would be, last year as we moved forward through the Tallahassee session, Bob Levy, rest his soul, said that the Greenway was a do or die. And we didn't get any funding, and there was no funding for that project that year. And I don't know, what is this study something to bring back, the do or die, or what's anticipated with this study that we haven't done in the past?
I don't know that it was do or die. I know we actually got funded. It got vetoed by the governor at that time. I don't think we were able to make our case of what, again, the economic impact. Governor Scott's very big on what the economic impact, how does it make sense, what's the return on investment. And so they got, I think, $1.5 million, $2 million, something like that. It got vetoed by the governor. And so that's part of what this economic study is that when they come back and say, what is the economic development, what's our return on the investment? It's not just my opinion and your opinion or the community's opinion. It's the actual piece of paper with someone that did a financial study that shows this is the economic impact. This is what it means in millions of dollars to South Dade. And so that's where it's going to help us both at that level if we get funded and avoid the veto, and or to make our case to the elected officials that this is a project that is important. Also, there was another hiccup before. There was other trailways that more politically powerful people were pushing at northern part of the state. And so they moved to the head. Those have now been funded. They're out of the way. They've cleared the pathway. And so that now gives us all the ability to argue and make a case why this Greenway Trail is unique and different than all the other trails in the entire state of Florida. And that's because it connects 2 national parks. But part of that is we've got to be able to prove the economic impact, because without the economic impact, I just don't think it's not going to be sellable.
Well, and you also hit on a good point, because we're getting ready to have some leadership up there from South Florida.
Yes.
So I think that this would be a good time to also move this forward and have it ready for when that leadership takes over up there.
100%, yes.
Because we've got some strong allies. They're going to be in leadership, and we've also got strong allies that are just going to be sitting up there in the seats. So I think that our funding could possibly be there, despite, the veto that we had several years ago. So I'm in support of both of these, and I hope that, we have a majority. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Roth?
Thank you, Mayor. I also just think the New Year's celebration is a little bit premature, especially with the backdrop probably being a police station that's maybe not even completed yet at this time. And I agree with my colleague here, Jimmy, that anything we do to stimulate activity in life in downtown is a plus. Just don't think that it's going to be ready for this year. And the Greenway thing as well, I think that's a beautiful opportunity for us to showcase the two national parks. And I do think we have to prove to the decision makers in Tallahassee that those two national parks are as important as any other resource the state of Florida has, and we need to support that as well. We got to find out if we can actually make an economic difference with having that trail down here. So, and I'm not too familiar with it. I've heard of it in the past. How long is the trail?
It's about 26.2. It's almost an exact distance of a marathon. That's one of the things that makes it unique, is that you could hold triathlon events or marathons from one park to the other.
So that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. Vice Mayor? Vice Mayor, sir.
Am I?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. When I think about budgeting, I am a firm believer in priorities-based budgeting, in that your budget should reflect the priorities that you have for the community. And to me, it's incumbent upon me to ensure that the youth are a priority in our budget. And I just want to clarify one of the amounts within our special events, that is Career Source South Florida, 10,000. We're not giving Career Source South Florida anything. They're matching us dollar for dollar to provide summer jobs for youth in this community. The summer job program that they have now, it is exclusive, meaning only students in zip codes 33030 and 33033 are eligible to apply for those summer jobs. But with this additional pot of money, it makes it more inclusive in that every child in our city has the opportunity to apply for a summer job. So $10,000 to be able to leverage with Career Source South Florida to provide summer jobs in our community, I think is a drop in the bucket. So I would appreciate your support on that. And with one other, the youth empowerment activity for the Mayor's Youth Council, which was formerly the Chili Cook-Off, I'm going to ask that we can decrease it to $10,000 because it won't take $15,000 for that. And with that $5,000, if we can move it to the YMCA Youth in Government program, because when I originally requested that, we only had one school, and that was Homestead Senior High. Now we're focusing on Homestead Middle School as well, and we'll need funds to support that. So if we can put $10,000 for the Youth in Government program and decrease the youth engagement program, I greatly appreciate your support with that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mr. Shelley, then Mr. Williams.
Just wanted to clarify my position on the New Year's Eve. I support it. I support putting it in the budget. I'll vote for it tonight in the budget. My only concern is the planning process going forward. And my big concern is that I agree that we need to bring attention to the downtown, 100% behind that. My concern is that if we come out of the cake before the downtown is ready, if we bring thousands and thousands of people to a New Year's party, and at the end of the day, they don't have a good time because there's not enough places open to service them, and they just say, well, we're never coming back. We tried it once. So that's my only concern is however you guys plan it, it needs to be planned in such a way that it takes into account that, or it sets the expectations of those who are attending at the right level so that they don't come downtown once and then say, well, it wasn't what we thought it was going to be, and then we don't get a chance to get them back the next year. So that's my real concern. I support it 100% moving forward, and I'm going to vote for it tonight in the budget. Just as you guys are thinking about how this event's going to look, let's make sure that we do it in a way that doesn't potentially succeed but fail at the same time, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Williams.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, I support all of these individual requests. what is it that we need to do to move on this, George?
Without objection to what was proposed, we'll make the adjustments, and they'll be done.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Burgess?
Thank you. And Mr. Shelley, I thank you for your support. Perhaps we could get a synopsis of what staff wants to bring forward sooner than later,
Absolutely.
before we let the cat out of the bag and get people excited about it and all that. And then that'll give us some review, and we can either give a stamp of approval or not and move forward from there on.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Carlos, did you have?
No, I was just going to basically reiterate what the manager had said, that the changes, if you were all in favor of them, staff will make it. We'll basically take it out of contingency. That way it doesn't affect the bottom line or the reading of the ordinance tonight.
And to that, with regards to Losner Park, you know, a lot of reason why we couldn't do the State of the City outside last year was because of the situation of how Losner Park is, you know, through this transition of obviously finishing off the theater, now, you know, working on the police station, and that's going to fall right into, you know, how's that going to be ready for the New Year's Eve scenario? Is it going to be rutted up? And so that's kind of a Parks and Rec question, and that's the logistics on the staff's, you know, side of the table. But it would be nice to know that at that point, you know, sometime around that New Year's Eve, because that falls in line with what I thought our first event, State of the City outdoors, was a screaming success, and I'd like to go back to that again, but we couldn't do it outdoors. Two reasons. We got it rolled too late in the year, and the concern about the state of the park itself. So I think that needs to be something that Parks and Rec has to look at, knowing that I'm in full support of everybody with all of these events.
Once you give us the date of when you want it, we'll back into it, and we'll figure it out.
You want your event on New Year's Eve?
I would like to try to see if we can logistically get it done.
I agree. You're absolutely correct.
If
But
we can logistically get it done, I think, you know, the sooner we get people downtown and keep them going and show them what's happening, the better off the city is.
100%.
And especially if we've got outside people that are teetering back and forth when this new deal hopefully happens tomorrow for us, this will be another bang for a home run to draw more people down here. So,
again, it falls in line with what we do with the State of the City. Again, it's focusing on the efforts and the impact of having a true historic heart and soul of your community and showing that to everyone. So it just my thing is, let's just try to know that we're going to have this early in the year for parks to have some sort of effort to make that.
Don't worry, Mayor, we're canceling Christmas this year, so
Okay.
it's fine. We'll be
and
fine.
Thanksgiving probably too, so. Okay, so any other questions on these two events, or any other questions on anything else in the budget right now? You need anything else? Anybody, any other questions? At this point, no one is having any concerns with the budget and the special events categories. We're all in agreement there with both of those events, or the two additional events, and the current ones that are already in the funding.
We just need a vote.
And we're okay with additional 5,000 into the State of the City, and the Vice Mayor's request to move 5,000 from one fund to another fund.
Yes, we're all set.
Okay, all set? Do we need a motion on that?
Yes. As proposed.
Okay, do I need to open up the public hearing first?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to open up the public hearing at this time. Any questions or comments with regard to the budget, the entire budget? I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Is there a motion for the budget as amended?
The budget be moved to second reading as amended.
As amended. Is there a second? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Williams?
Yes.
Councilman Shelley? Councilman Burgess? Councilman Roth?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fairclough?
Yes.
Mayor Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
And thank you, Mayor. I'm going to excuse myself as well. I'm going to be on the same plane as Richard, but hopefully I won't miss the plane. But
Bring back-
Kate will be here to
Bring
take
back the
over.
movie theater.
Wish us luck.
Look, tab 2, Mr. Attorney. Was that for Carlos?
Oh. I'm sorry. I thought that Richard had read the reso into the record beforehand, so we'll back that up, and just take a vote.
I don't think it
So,
is. You didn't do the
We need
millage.
tab 2.
Excuse
Go
me.
ahead.
We were still under discussion. We really hadn't moved to tab 1, so we need to read the resolution for 1 and then enter
we'll
the
skip
the
ahead.
vote into the record.
Oh, I thought we just voted on tab 1.
but Richard didn't read the reso into the,
Okay.
I'm just going to read the resolution into the record.
Go ahead.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, establishing a proposed operating millage rate of ad valorem taxation and establishing a proposed millage rate for debt service on the general obligation bonds for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2016, and ending September 30th, 2017. Okay.
Okay, now do we need to open up the public hearing again on
Yeah,
tab
we're-
1?
We're fine, we can have a motion.
Okay. The motion was made and a second, and we need to vote again.
Yes. Just
Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Williams?
Yes.
Councilman Roth?
Yes.
Councilman Burgess?
Yes.
Councilman Shelley? Vice Mayor Fairclough?
Yes.
Mayor Porter?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Tab 2?
Tab 2 is an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, adopting the budget for each of the several funds and departments of the city for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2016, and ending September 30th, 2017, providing for a repealer, severability, and an effective date. And we've just been through all of the budget, and Carlos is going to make the adjustments, so.
Moved and seconded. Carlos, you need anything?
No, sir, just a vote on this.
Okay, I'm going to open up the public hearing, tab 2. Close the public hearing on tab 2. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Williams?
Yes.
Councilman Shelley? Councilman Burgess? Councilman Roth?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fairclough?
Yes.
Mayor Porter?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion. Moving second, all in favor? 5 minutes and we'll go into the cow.